Lucky to be alive and near miss are terms you're all probably too familiar with. These words are thrown around in the aftermath of minor and major incidents. Then we hear phrases such as, "this could have been avoided," or "disasters like this should never happen." But we all know they do. And hundreds of people suffer serious physical injuries, or even worse. Today, we're reminding you to be vigilant about your safety, your health, and your environment.
40 years ago, I was dead on arrival at Royal Perth Hospital following a serious traffic accident. Fortunately for me, the person who ran over me was an off-duty ambulance officer, and he knew not to lock his brakes up. On that day back in 1976, I paid a hefty physical and personal price. It didn't only affect me, my wife and family were also impacted. I was reminded that accidents can sneak up on you and lives are lost through either inattention, incompetence through less than satisfactory training, or just some bad luck. Now it's time we sit up and pay attention. You might think it can't happen to you. That's what I thought.
It's April 2010 and the Deepwater Horizon oil rig explodes, claiming the lives of 11 crew members and sets off the worst oil spill in US history. The ongoing effects are enormous. The environment is still recovering. Thousands of families will never recover. And the company lost billions of dollars. Years of cutting corners favouring speed over safety. Not just one careless mistake caused the disaster. It's this accepted, "she'll be right, mate" culture that's putting lives at risk.
You're employed by a company to do a job. You're instructed how to do a job. Your mentor goes with you to show you how to do the job. And he says, I can save you a fair bit of time with this shortcut. Accepted practice, not the correct practice, becomes the norm. "She'll be right, mate." "She won't be right, mate." "She'll be right, mate" attitude or culture will kill your mates.
We all remember these images of a burning oil rig and the devastation caused to wildlife and the environment. Because it's disasters like this that draw international media attention. But it doesn't take long before such images become a distant memory. That is, until the next catastrophe occurs. If you're like most people, you think this can only happen on a big scale, somewhere in a distant land. What if I told you it can happen much closer to home? A massive blaze and a plume of thick, toxic smoke shoots up into the sky as this petrol tanker explodes. The tanker was carrying 40,000 litres of unleaded petrol. 50 firefighters rushed to the scene to control the fire. Hundreds of people were evacuated from their nearby homes and offices. Surprisingly, no one was injured, but the damage bill ran into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. This incident is a wake-up call. A reminder that it can happen much closer to home. And it's a reminder that when it comes to workplace safety, complacency has no place.
Complacency almost cost me my life. Some years ago, I was operating mining machinery, and on this occasion, a bobcat, and I always wore a seatbelt. Thought to, was just good practice. However, after a while, after getting in and out of the machine 20 or 30 times a day, you get back in, no seatbelt. Be right, drop the seatbelt down. And that went on for ages, no problem at all. Till one day, I didn't see a small stump sitting out of the ground. Must have been looking around, and I hit it. Bang, no seatbelt. It pitched me forward. I landed on the controls, pushed them forward, which kept the machine wanting to go forward. Bang, bang, bang. And I had to scramble off those controls. Lucky I did. And the machine stopped. The controls managed to spring back to neutral, and it all just stopped. I'm on top of the bucket of dirt. I turn around and go, I could be dead.
In the 13 years from 2003 to 2015, more than 3,200 workers lost their lives in work-related incidents in Australia. In fact, recent Safe Work Australia figures show that 164 Australian workers have been killed at work in 2016.
Static is a big problem within fuel farms and aviation areas. It creates the potential for a big hazard of a fire or an explosion. So we need a holistic approach to how we rectify the problem and I guess identify the hazards associated with it to keep everybody safe.
The top 4 mechanisms for these deaths are vehicle collision, being hit by moving objects, falling from a height, and being hit by falling objects. Also in the top 10 are explosion and contact with electricity.
In hazardous areas, we have 2 areas of concern. Electrically speaking, you have got the areas where you've got the energy of the power itself that can cause an ignition to the atmosphere. And it's an energy which cannot be seen, it cannot be touched, it's just ever present, waiting to arc and spark and cause an ignition. The other area of concern we have is the inspection regime around that equipment, whether it was installed correctly, whether the paperwork has been truly filled out correctly, or whether it has just been passed over rapidly and just commissioned as per the check sheet without ever looking. And you'll find after 4 or 5 years, you'll go and open that piece of equipment up and the atmosphere that it's been exposed to, the heat, the cold, the frost, the rain, it's deteriorated to a stage where it can no longer safely and reliably contain that form of energy.
In the 13 years to 2015, the transport industry recorded the 2nd highest fatality rate, with an average of 10.6 fatalities per 100,000 workers. In the air transport category, which includes passenger and industrial aircraft, 184 workers died.
Yeah, a guy was cleaning a motor spirit tank from the open manway. The tank was not gas-free. It had a lot of particulates floating around in the atmosphere as well as all the vapours. The high-pressure water that is jetting up inside the tank generated a static discharge. There was a flash explosion within the vapours in the tank, which ended up passing out through the manway and blowing him several feet away against a wall, which he injured his shoulder.
Over the 3-year period from July 2006, there were just over 3,700 work-related hospitalisations in the transport industry. Although burns account for a small percentage of overall workplace injuries, it's those workers who spend the longest time recovering in hospital. And these are the type of injuries we're talking about.
There is no doubt that with fire you don't appreciate it until it impacts you in some way. I survived my accident all those years ago, and this is my second chance. Some people aren't as fortunate, and some are left with lifelong emotional and physical scars.
Preventing disasters requires daily vigilance that is actively taught and reinforced.
Do you still think this can't happen to you? Because it can.
Think first, think She. Safety, health, environment.